Grace Fishers was originally launched as a campus church in 2013 by an invested group of people who wanted to reach their friends and neighbors in Fishers with the love of Jesus. Though we were impacting our community, by 2021, the world around us had changed. During this time, we sought wise counsel, prayer, and discernment, where two things became clear. First, God gave us this location for a reason. We're situated in a developing prime location in Fishers on the doorsteps of Noblesville, McCordsville, Fortville, Pendleton, and Indianapolis. Second, in the wake of the global pandemic, our friends and neighbors had a deeper need for the hope and love of Jesus. It became clear to us that our part in reaching our city was not yet complete. That original heart to reach our friends and neighbors remained as strong as in the beginning. On August 1st, 2021, we took a significant step forward as Grace Fishers launched as an independent congregation with a renewed focus to make disciples of Jesus and launch them into the mission of God. Our first Sunday as an independent congregation, we celebrated Jesus Christ as our leader, guide, and source for all we do as a church. During these past 2 years, the people of Grace Fishers have taken remarkable ownership of our vision, marked by an increased desire to invite friends and neighbors, some of whom are far from God or worry about church because of past hurt. Lives have been transformed as people joined us on this journey. And in that time, we've celebrated 70 baptisms. We've been reminded that Jesus calls unlikely people to do things beyond what they believe possible. And when they're obedient, He multiplies whatever they bring to Him. God has demonstrated His provision over and over, again and again. We've explored new opportunities to serve our community. Highlights include launching a preschool that now serves over 90 kids and reflects our diverse community. And each year, we've introduced ourselves to new people through our 4th of July fireworks show, Sync to Worship Music. We've opened our doors to community events for Every Child Indiana, foster care, the YMCA, and other churches, including an Assyrian church who gathers monthly in our building for worship and fellowship. God's Spirit has been with us each step of the way as we continue to grow. We have an incredibly active congregation with over 80% of our adults connected into groups and doing life together. We've also seen a 10% increase in weekend attendance over the past year. The energy in the building after each service as people connect with one another is significant. Lives are being transformed.
I grew up in Brazil. I moved to the U.S. I was 18 years old. I came here. I actually got married at that age. I know it sounds insane. So I met my ex-husband in Brazil, and he brought me here. I didn't speak English, and it was very difficult. Like leaving everything behind, your family and all of that. And we just kind of started life, and he was very controlling, very jealous, and that just festered, and then he kind of used my faith to kind of rope me into staying for 5.5 years, and then it got to a point that things are just not working. So he kind of gave me an ultimatum, and I chose to not stay with him, and I stay here all by myself. I actually met my husband, my current husband, in college. And then I started life, started adulting, I guess. It's been a crazy journey for me, just getting here, God has seen me through every single step, to having people who helped me when I got divorced I don't have a single family member here. At the end of the day, I felt that God was always on my side, and sometimes there were points in my life that I felt like if I wasn't doing the right thing, I wasn't worthy of God. That's what grace really is, That's what He offers, and I didn't have to do anything to be worthy of God. And that really changed my life, that when I finally understood that, because it was hard coming to church when you don't feel like you belong, when you don't feel like you're just like everybody else, and you're just not worthy of being there. And a few months later, I moved here, and I went to the Fishers farmers market and met a lady And she was like, you gotta go visit my church. You gotta go visit my church. And I say, sure. And then she said, it's Grace Fisher's. I came here with her for the first time physically, came here with her. And I had been watching the service online for several weeks at that point. I met a few people here and it was wonderful and it was exactly how I thought it was gonna be, and I felt like I was at home. I remember watching the service and then Pastor addressing all of these issues with so much love and grace and without judgment, without trying to sway people on one side or the other. And that really touched me. That made me feel like this is a place where people feel safe, where people feel like they can be themselves and they can come and not be judged. They can feel like they're at home and they don't feel like somebody is trying to shove something down their throat. Grace Fishers was perfect for that, and perfect for that person to see that the love of Christ represented in the people in this church.
In college, I struggled a bit with depression, and I was starting to think that my prayers weren't answered. I was praying for a village of friends, like people that I could depend on. And slowly but surely, I was getting that. But I was so immersed in just depression, negative thoughts, that I didn't see it. So I kept praying for more. And then I kept thinking, oh, my prayers aren't getting answered. Like, what's the point of this? Until I look back now as a 26-year-old man versus 21, where I was praying for all of this. And I look back as an adult and I was like, well, God answered that prayer. And he delivered on it. But because I was so negative in my thinking and I was so pessimistic, I didn't realize that my prayers were answered. I met my fiance, Jordan, kind of around where I had like a resurgence of faith, like starting praying more regularly, reading the Bible more regularly. And then, funnily enough, I meet this wonderful person that was like, hey, so I'm not pushing you to go, but I have this church that I'm going to, and I've been going for my family for my whole life. And if you're looking at a church, you should come check this out. And so I went with her. And when I first came, everyone was super friendly, super kind. And I was like, huh. But more important than that, I found a lot of like mentors throughout my life here, including my in-laws, but also people I talked to regularly. My struggle with Christianity was, while I was still trying to figure it out, people were like, no, you got to do it this way. You got to do it this way. You have to do it this way. You must pray this way. You must do this to be a good Christian. You must do this. And at Grace, it was more like kind of like slowly guiding you. And one thing I noticed with like Kevin, I can ask him a question about faith and he'll, instead of just like a quick answer, it's, okay, well, I've actually experienced this, but you can look at it this way. And I eventually got baptized at Grace Fisher's in November of last year. And I just noticed there was like a difference to where I was like hearing what people were saying about like, oh, what this means to me, how this goes. But then I started like feeling it and I started seeing it. The faith journey continues day by day, praying more every day, reading the scripture more day to day, and just overall just striving to be a better person. I would tell any guy or anyone wrestling in faith that the first thing you should do is get out of your own way. That's the most important thing. And that's what I struggle with personally, because I was very independent and I was very like, I need to get this done. I need to do this by myself. I need to shoulder this burden. I don't need to rely on anyone. That's what kind of put me into depression, because the weight of everything was so heavy. And then I started praying for the wrong purposes, because that's what I thought I needed to do. And I needed God to do this. And instead of asking God for guidance, asking for clarity, I was demanding stuff of him. Like, I need you to help me with this. You need to help me here. You need to guide me on this path now. And that's not how it works. It's a lifelong thing. It's not prayer, 5 seconds, boom, you get it. It's lifelong.
My junior year of high school, I kind of just like had just that, I don't know, that empty feeling. I kept kept trying to fill up my cup and it just kept emptying out. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, I love my friends. I love the sports I'm in. Just trying to just fill. And there's still just something. I'm like, what is it? And I just remember sitting in the locker room talking with a friend, and she introduced me to Christianity and invited me to come to Grace that following Sunday. And I remember just like sitting in the seat and hearing Pastor Kevin quote Jesus saying that his yoke is light. And I just remember just like how taboo that sounded to me, of just like, whoa, he wants to carry like my burdens and it's not too heavy. And he delights in doing that. And just, yeah, that feeling of just like surrendering and giving my life to him in that moment, because, whoa, like he's given me everything. He deserves all of me. So I made that decision in that seat that Sunday to follow Christ. So since my friend took the time out to pour into me, I'm kind of in that same situation now with my best friend. She always asks questions, but she still hasn't it's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I'm just like, you can do it. Like, come on. Like, so it's just, yeah, we're just in that phase of just me continuing to just dive into the Bible with her and answering questions. And if I can tell the congregation, if they feel like they don't have someone to share with, there's people out there. You can find one. The grocery store. Just if you truly are just intentional with it, grab your neighbor, grab anybody. And if there's the fear of, oh, I don't want to overstep, or this might be too risky or out of place, let God lead the way. All we have to do is just use our tongues and just, He does the rest. Plant the seed, God does the rest. Don't be afraid to reach out. I'm excited about the future of Grace, because when I even think about just the cap, like we haven't even we're not even halfway there yet. There's just still so much growth to happen. Opportunities are endless, especially with our high schoolers and the kids. I mean, they're our next generation, and we're really pouring into them. And I'm excited for them to become the next leaders here at Grace.
While the past 2 years have been exciting and encouraging, they've also been a sprint. This year we found space to breathe, and while doing so, we're paying attention to one big opportunity and one big challenge. First, the opportunity. As a healthy congregation, we're poised for continued healthy growth. God planted us here at this location in this building with the goal of reaching the people He's placed along our path. People all around us are looking for hope, and we know that the ultimate source of hope and healing is found in the person of Jesus. Now the challenge. While we're blessed with an incredible facility, we face the financial challenge of a large mortgage. This debt and ownership was part of the agreement we accepted as we launched as an independent church. 30% of our current budget is focused on paying for the principal and interest on our building. And while the mortgage debt has been manageable, it limits our ability to care for those in our church body. It's also a barrier for new ministry and restricts us from being generous to those around us. And it's a barrier which will grow over time. Since the beginning of 2023, the leadership at Grace Fishers has been asking, what's next? Through prayer and discernment, we decided to embark on a 2-year journey called the Reach Initiative. As we enter into this next season, this initiative will challenge each of us relationally to reach those who need hope, and financially as we seek to raise $2 million over the next 2 years to reduce the barriers imposed by our mortgage. We're being called to reach our friends and neighbors who are far from God. Each of us must consider who God is asking us to reach. Who has God placed in your life, at school, at work, in your neighborhood, or even in your own family? You have the opportunity to be the person that God uses to reach someone with His hope. Who is the one person that God is calling you to reach? Imagine what would happen in our community if each of us reached the person that God is calling us to invest our lives in. By proactively reducing our mortgage by $2 million, we can continue to explore new ministry opportunities God has for us and minimize the impact on our budget. 100% of the funds given towards the Reach Initiative will go to reducing our mortgage. This will help us weather the challenge of an interest rate increase on our loan in September 2024. Every dollar invested in this way will have a double impact as it reduces future interest payments and allows future dollars to be invested in direct ministry. This proactive giving strategy will allow us to become increasingly generous to our ministry partners like Shepherd Community, Hands of Hope, missionaries around the world, and many others. Over time, this kingdom impact will take root and grow into new areas we can't yet imagine. The question for each of us in this season is simple yet challenging. What's my part? First, we're asking everyone who calls Grace Fishers home to make a relational commitment towards investing in one person who does not know the hope of Jesus. Who has God placed in your life that He wants you to reach? And if you don't know who that person is yet, will you ask the Holy Spirit to point them out over the coming days and weeks? Second, we're asking for a financial commitment toward our $2 million goal. How is God asking you to trust Him with your finances and grow in generosity? For some, this will be a first step, and for many, it will be reaching beyond what they're currently doing and giving sacrificially in this next season. Doing what God has called us to do will require us to reach beyond our limits and trust Him with all of who we are and all of what we have. As each of us discerns what God is calling us to do and takes steps of obedience, many people will experience radical transformation as they accept Jesus' invitation into a full life with Him. And we'll be able to do the part that God has assigned us to do as a member of His global church. And in this process, we'll be changed. Paul reminded the church at Philippi, I am certain that God who began the good work within you will continue His work until it is finally finished on the day when Christ returns. Grace Fishers, God is faithful in doing His part. Now together, let's join Him in doing ours.